Hello and welcome to episode 26 of Caribbean Content Creators. My name is Lyndon Baptiste and I am a YouTuber and podcaster. Can I call myself a podcaster? 26 episodes? I'm not sure, but today I want to share my experience and what I've learned so far with the hope that if you are a content creator listening to this, that you will benefit in some way. So we're going to talk about, I'm going to reflect on my own performance, my own development. I want to talk a bit about video podcasting and repurposing content, because one of the things you quickly learn is that you could take a long podcast that you've filmed with your iPhone or one camera and repurpose it so that you could distribute it quickly on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram stories. So let's get started with my reflection on my own performance. Today is the 25th of April 2023. Before I go any further, I want to shout out my daughter Anna, who celebrates 4 years old today. I posted my first podcast episode on November the 1st, 2022. Since then, the podcast has gathered 1,291 plays. It has 59 listeners in the last 7 days. And on Spotify, the podcast has 65 followers. So if you are one of those followers, a special shout out to you. If you're listening to this podcast for the first time and you are a content creator or you're interested in content like this, I talk to writers, YouTubers, TikTokers from the Caribbean. So you could go ahead and give that subscribe or follow button a little bit of a push. I'll really appreciate it. So let's talk about my reflection on my own performance. Editing the early episodes of the podcast, one of the things I quickly realized is the little details in my speech that are quite annoying. For example, I'd pause in the middle of sentences. I'd use filler words, and at the end of sentences, I'll add and, but, and then pause for a while. I still struggle with it. The second thing I've learned is that recording solo episodes like this are quite hard. For instance, you're hearing this episode, but one of the things I want you to know that this is actually the third, no, I'm lying. This is the 7th time that I'm giving it a go. I don't know why I'm overwhelmed by the desire to get a podcast episode right in one shot. And it just really doesn't work for me. One of the things I'm doing right now is I am pretending to talk to someone that I like, which is you, and is making it a little bit easier. I'm sitting with my hands folded and I have a smile on my face. And I'm sharing that because I want to impress on you and myself, perhaps, that you have to be in a certain frame of mind to record an episode in a way that it comes across as something that makes it easy to do. And I think that by pretending to speak to a friend right now, by having one person in mind that I really like to chat with, is working out quite well for me. I've learned a lot when it comes to software, repurposing content. And in the near future, I hope to record a YouTube video about how you could take a long podcast that you've recorded with one camera, ideally in 4K, and then repurpose it for distribution on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. One of the things I've also learned is that batch recording episodes could be helpful. I haven't done a lot of it, but I need to. I need to have about, like if I was to sit and write out all my episodes at the beginning of the month, I sit and I write about 8 to 12 episodes, and then I sit and record those 8 to 12 episodes, maybe within a 2-day window or as my time allows, so that I don't need to be constantly each week concentrating on getting a new episode out there, doing the recording, doing the editing. So as of the time of this recording, for example, I have 2 episodes recorded and already edited, because I hope right now to post every Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. And I'm also hoping that if I batch record episodes, I could build the podcast consistency to posting on a Tuesday, hopefully an interview, and on a Friday, which would be a solo episode pretty much like the one you're hearing right now. So that's some of the things that stands out when I reflect on my own performance and experience. My speech patterns, recording solo episodes are hard. In fact, of all the forms of content creation I've done, I think podcasting is the hardest, the most challenging for me, because I need to be reading a lot more, I need to be writing a lot more, and taking notes as lessons come to me. Let's talk about guests. Initially, when I started this podcast, Caribbean Content Creators, I wanted it to be an interview show only. And so far, I've been able to connect with some amazing people. I've spoken to Christophe Pierre from Design by Spirit. I've spoken to Joey Timal, who goes by the name Fix or Fling. He's an appliance repair man, and he's using TikTok to his advantage, and he's talked about different apps that he uses with his small business. In the next episode, I'll be talking to a writer from Barbados, a guy by the name of Robert Gibson, who's in the process of setting up or has already established an independent self-publishing company. And he's doing great work. And when I talk to these different content creators, for example, Trinbago Vibes, I'm getting a greater respect for them as content creators and the level of work, research, learning, video editing tips and tricks that are going into their content creation process. And something stands out: their willingness to share the knowledge that they've gathered. And this podcasting business has given me an opportunity to connect with these people. One of the challenges with interviewing guests as a one-man show is I realized that there's no silver bullet. There's no template that I could use for all the guests. And as a one-man show, it is challenging in terms of doing the research. Sometimes I would do hours of homework and then have a 35-minute conversation. What I would say, though, is that it is a richer conversation that I could have, because I would go back into their channel, probably the first few videos that they've posted, and you try to get the different dimensions of the creator in terms of they're on Facebook, what type of content they post on YouTube, how they engage their audience, how they think about analytics. So it's amazing. In these interviews, I quickly realized, and I still do it, I talk too much. Framing questions, I struggle to frame questions. I would labor on and on and on, like I'm laboring on and on right now. And then at the end of it, ask a question that is a little bit convoluted, or you've lost the interviewee. So how I want to think about it moving forward is that when I'm interviewing a guest, I want to be able to pretend that I am a dentist. I want to pretend that I am at a dentist having a root canal. And I shouldn't be able to talk more than the dentist. In fact, I shouldn't be able to talk at all. So that would put me in a position mentally where I'm able to sit down with the dentist, let the dentist do their work, and just occasionally I should be able to ask a question or two and let the guest move on. Because at that point, I'm there to listen, I'm there to learn, and to transfer that knowledge onto the target audience. You, the listener, more than likely, you're a content creator. Are you a content creator by chance? Maybe you could reach out to me on Instagram at Lyndon Baptiste. I'd love to hear where you hail from, where you come from, and connect with you. So please feel free. Let's chat about monetization and the podcast host that I'm using. I am using Anchor.fm. I'm using Anchor, forgive me, those dogs are barking in the background. You'll probably hear about 3 of them. So I use a service called Anchor.fm. It allows me to post my podcast episodes for free, and I am able to distribute it to Spotify, Google Podcast. I am able to serve it on my website, which is potbake.com. There are options to monetize inside of Anchor.fm, but as someone posting from the Caribbean region, I realized that those services aren't available. So if you're a content creator in the Caribbean, you would find that when you go on different social media platforms, that's one of the issues that come up. Maybe, Trinidad and Tobago, the St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, it doesn't appear as one of the partner programs. What I do is I record the episodes, and because I'm monetized on YouTube, I'll post the podcast episodes over there. I vlog about life in Trinidad and Tobago, and I try to make tutorials at times on YouTube, on monetization, episodes on podcasting and repurposing content. That's the type of content that I usually do on my podcast, on my YouTube channels. When I post these podcast videos, they don't do well. When it comes to monetization, they don't generate as much revenue as my other videos. If you're thinking about it as a format that you could generate a lot of revenue from, that hasn't been my experience. Maybe your experience will be totally different. If it is, I'm happy for you. Is it worth doing? And for me, the answer to it is yes, because I am not looking at the monetization aspect of it. I am looking at the ability to connect with content creators and speak about content creation, which is something that I love to do. I am looking at the opportunity not just to learn and hear the experiences and the behind the scenes stories, but to share these lessons with my target audience, with you, the listener, who's more than likely a content creator. So I am not hindered at all by, the inability to monetize on Anchor.fm, or the inability, not the inability, but the low revenue that these type of videos generate on YouTube. The next thing is networking and resources. I've spoken a bit about it. I'm quickly learning that Instagram is a great place to connect with content creators. So you have the content creators who, and I never understood this in the past. I'd be posting on YouTube and, people could reach out by email. It never struck me till my wife probably mentioned the ability to message people privately on Instagram. And the great news is that I have reached out to people, hosts in New Zealand, other content creators in Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean, and they've all responded. Even if they can't do a recording virtually at a particular point in time, they have all expressed interest. So I'm pleased to know that, people, they're willing to talk about their work and to collaborate. A tool that has been invaluable to me so far is ChatGPT. As a one-man show, 26 episodes in, planning interviews, ChatGPT is one of the tools that I want to give a special mention to, because if you're thinking about how you write your prompts when you go to the ChatGPT website, I have a podcast. This is someone who I plan to speak to. This is their bio. These are their accomplishments. I want to speak to them about their story. I want to speak to them about the tools that they use, their creative process. Can you give me a list of questions that I could ask that would benefit my target audience? And ChatGPT gives me a pretty decent head start. It gives me a decent head start, and then I am able to take it and, maybe reframe it or just... I talked about my inability to quickly get to the point, but hopefully you get the point. So in closing, I'll just quickly recap some of the points we touched on today. I talked about my podcasting experience, 26 episodes in, my speech patterns, recording these solo episodes as challenging. If you're a content creator thinking about podcasting, you need to be reading. You need to be researching. You need to be taking notes. You need to be listening to podcasts. You need to be thinking about who your target audience is and to create questions for your interviewees that benefit the person who's listening to you. You need to narrow down your target audience. Your podcast is not for everyone. It is for a particular group. We've spoken about monetizing and the challenges in the Caribbean here. Networking, reaching out to folks on Instagram, and the use of ChatGPT. As a content creator, you have the tools that you could start a podcast. And I strongly believe that it is worth doing. You don't need to dish out any money. You could try Anchor.fm. It may not be the best option, but it is a free option. And it gives you, if you are a content creator with a product for sale, and you have a particular target audience out there that you could talk to. It might be an artist. It might be a farmer. It might be content creators. You have the opportunity that you could start recording your podcast on your phone, or you get a cheap USB microphone, and you could start posting episodes for free. I strongly recommend it. I'm enjoying it. I'm learning a lot. I'm able to connect and collaborate with other content creators in a way that may not have been possible before the podcast. And you develop so much, and you're able to share your knowledge with the world or a particular group of people that are interested in what you are speaking about, I'd love to hear from you. Reach out to me on Instagram. Let me know where you're listening from at Lyndon Baptiste. On Instagram, you could send me a message. In the next episode, I'll be talking to a writer from Barbados. His name is Robert Gibson.